Allison said in my last class I wasn't quite myself. And so I said, well, myself would start with a song. So that's what we did tonight. I wanted to welcome everybody here. Thank you for being here tonight. We're going to continue in our class now with parting words of the wise. And we've already looked at Joseph and at Moses with Zach. And tonight, as you probably figured out already, we're starting with Joshua. So again, like we did with Joseph, I want to move through the history of Joshua and make sure we all know his life, or at least well refreshed in it. Is that better? So the first time, can you remember the first time we see Joshua in Scripture? What's happening? The first time you might remember we see Joshua in Scripture. Okay, one second. That's a very good one. So she remembered when Moses goes up Mount Sinai. What's another one we remembered? The spies in the land. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. But no. You're right. You're right. So Mount Sinai was before the spies in the land. But let's start with the spies in the land because that's where I think that's where our mind mostly goes to with Joshua. So that's actually in Numbers chapter 13. So Numbers 13, there in verse 8, we find out that Hosea, the son of Nun, he's from the tribe of Ephraim. There in verse 16, Moses changes his name to Joshua. And actually, as Mary Jane mentioned, that he's on the mountain, he's referred to as Joshua back then. So there's a couple accounts of him before them, but he's still known as Joshua until here. And then in chapter 13 and verse 27, they say that they're going to go to the land of... Oh, right. So what's happening in this section right here? Remember, Moses is sending the 12 spies into the land of Canaan to search it out. And they come back there and say in 27, the land that flows with milk and honey. And what do the 10 of the spies say? Can't do it. Can't do what? Can't take it. And they specifically mention giants. You're right. The descendants there in 33, it mentions the descendants of Anak. They came from giants. Yeah, so there's 10 who come back and say, we can't take this land. And they feared what they saw. And what good stuff did they see, though? You guys remember what the good stuff they saw? Yeah, the grapes that 2 men had to carry on a staff. It was 1 bushel of grapes. They were so big they had to carry on a staff. And all kinds of other good foods and lots of good things that they all know that they would want, but they say, we can't take it. And then in verse 30 there, Caleb says, let's go out and take it, for we are able. And the rest of the spies, assumingly not Joshua, though he's not mentioned immediately there, say they can't go up, mostly fearing death. And then that gets us through 13 and then into 14. Numbers 14 starts with the people listening to the 10 spies, and they start to complain and say, why did you bring us out of Egypt and to let us die by the sword here? And they actually use the words there in verse 3. They're questioning and saying, why would you do this and let our children become victims? They use the word children become victims. And then in verse 5 there in Numbers, Moses and Aaron fall on their faces before the people. But then it is Joshua and Caleb who step up now. So they're, in verse 5, so Moses and Aaron, they're kind of bereft, I would say, because of the people coming at them and complaining, and Joshua and Caleb step up. So I want to read there in Numbers 14, 6 through 9. Numbers 14, starting in verse 6. But Joshua said to the son of Nun, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land. They tore their who were among those who spied out the land, and they tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring it to us in the land, to give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." And of course, the people said, "All right, let's go." No, not at all, right? In verse 10 right there, "And all the congregation said, 'Stone them with stones.' And now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel." Remember that part for just a moment. So Moses, after this, talks to God for a few minutes here, and right after this, and he's mainly asking for a pardon for the people, just as God has pardoned them so many times since leading Egypt. And what does God decide to do at that point? Does he decide to pardon all of them, or what's he decide to do? Punishes them how? Right, exactly. So exactly. So he sentenced them to wander in the wilderness. Everyone who is over the age of 20, it says there, will die and will not enter the land. Everyone over the age of 20 except for Joshua and Caleb. And Caleb, even so, in this section, is promised a section of land which he spied out, and that's in verse 24 of 14. And then I want to note 14 and 31. You go ahead. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so I did touch on it, but yeah, you're right. In 12, it was in the conversation with Moses and God, but God says, "I will strike them with pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make a nation greater and mightier than they." So yeah, but I think that's his plan in the wilderness, is to bring that upon them. But yeah, that's a very good to point out. Thank you. He does, and he asks for that pardon and says, basically comes out to say, you've forgiven this so many times since we've left Egypt, and asks for it to be again. Sorry, I lost my place. So in verse 31 there and 14, let's actually just start in 29. And so this is them being sentenced to go into the wilderness. In 29 it says, it gets kind of graphic, and it says, "The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in the wilderness, all of you who were numbered according to the entire number from 20 years old and above, except for Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. And you shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But the little ones whom you said would be victims I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness." And so that's what Joshua goes on to say to the people. So the people hear this news, and they've come up out of Egypt, right? They've faced a lot of hardship on the way up here. And so now they hear this. And what do they do now? Do they just follow Moses into the wilderness to die? Does that sound like a good plan? Yeah, it seems like the even crazier kind of plan. They're in 14 ends, starting in verse 39, where the people they choose to go ahead and try to take the land because they're like, we came this far. He promised us this. We're going to take the land. So they run up the mountain and they meet Amalekites and Canaanites with swords, and they get driven off. One of the bigger things to note here is that when they went up, they left two things behind in the camp: Moses and the Ark of the Covenant. They didn't take them with them. And so therefore, God wasn't with them, and they were pushed back. And that's when the journey in the wilderness starts. And it was 40 years in the wilderness because that was the number of the days the spies were in the land. So they went and they toiled for 1 year for every day that the spies were in the land. Now Zach took us through majority of Moses, and we looked at a lot of that wandering through there. But I had a couple of discussion points so far. Where does Joshua find that faith in God? The faith he had to stand up in front of all those people. Where did he find that faith in God? Did Joshua have a special place? Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's where we're getting at. That's what I'm getting at, is that Moses had been training him for all this time. You know, you pointed out that he had he was on the mountain. So in Exodus 17, Moses has Joshua lead the men into battle into battle with the Amalekites, and that was the first one, Mary Jane, that I could find. And that's in Exodus 17. So Joshua has been around for quite some time now. And then and that was actually the battle where, remember, Moses had to hold up his hands, and they had to help him support him. And then if his hands fell, the battle was lost. But when he picked his hands back up, they win. Joshua was leading that battle. And so imagine what he saw there. And then in Exodus 24:13, this is what Mary Jane mentioned, that when Moses went up the mountain to get the tablets, Joshua, it says, is his assistant. Joshua was there. And then Exodus 33:11, Joshua just keeps popping up in Exodus. In 33:11, we have Joshua is with Moses when he sets up the tabernacle of meeting for the first time. And there Joshua is described as a young man. So he already led the battle against the Amalekites, and now he's still being described as a young man in Exodus 33. So at this point, I point this out to say that Joshua saw all the miracles of God, right? Just like all the other people who saw the miracles of God, right? Remember, we have the Red Sea, the food coming from the manna falling. He's seen all these miracles, just as all the other people did, but it wasn't lost on him, right? He saw those things, and he remembered that they were from God and that God was with him. So just in what we've looked at so far, what does this tell us about the kind of man that Joshua is? What kind of man is Joshua? He's faithful. Very much so. Man of courage. What else do we have of him? What else do we see of Joshua so far? He's faithful. He has courage. He's a leader. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, Stan was saying he had some humility. He was humble. He was teachable. Because he did follow Moses for a long time so far. Absolutely, yeah. That's a very good point, and I was wondering when to bring that out. So he was saying that, talking about the miracles again, he saw the 10 plagues. So Joshua was in Egypt, right? as far as I can tell, he was one of the ones who left Egypt. And so he even saw even those miracles. So faithful. He was courageous, a leader. It's what we've seen so far. And how old is Joshua by this point, do you think? So he was a young man back in Exodus, and now here we are in Numbers with the 12 spies. Kind of speculate about how old do you think Joshua is? Yeah, Caleb is at the end of the book of Joshua. We find out Caleb was in his 40s at this time. Caleb was. And I think Joshua is pretty close to the same age. So Joshua's around the age of 40, what I can assume, what I figured out. Now, let's say he's brave, he's faithful, he's courageous. To what end? To the risk of what? Is he courageous? Is he brave? Is he faithful? Eventually comes the leader. Okay. It's okay. I'll restate. To the risk of what? What is? That's one thing. Yeah, absolutely. We should point out is right. Yeah. So they were both pointing out that he is he's resolute and does not let the fear that all these other ones have, seeing the giants, hold him back. But thinking about when he was standing in front of all the people, and all the people are yelling at Moses and Aaron, and Caleb and Joshua stand up. And remember what we pointed it out. After they said, we can take this, what did they want to do to him? Stone him. So he stood up in front of who? Who was he standing in front of, first off? The people of Israel, his family, his people. He's standing in front of them and telling them that we can do this because God is with us, and they say, stone him. So I ask, to what end, to the risk of what? What's he risking when he stands up? I heard somebody, what's up? His life, his death, in front of his family. Exactly. Now, what this section that we've read so far is, what does all this tell us about God? What do we see from God's point of view on this? Absolutely, that's a really good one we see so far. He rewarded those. We saw the reward he's promised Caleb so far. He rewards who's faithful to him. Or at least he will. Caleb hasn't gotten it yet, but he's promised it thus far. What else do we see about God here? Absolutely. He said popular opinion doesn't sway God, so he stood by his word, right? What else do we see about God here? Absolutely. He gets angry when people don't trust him and say it one more time, and don't do what he's told him to do. Right, so he has expectations of his people, right? We see that here, is he has expectations of his people, and he's told them what to do. Now let's do some application real quick. From what you know of your Christian faith today, does God expect us to stand like Joshua? That's an easy one, right? So that was a softball. Right. So does God expect us to stand like Joshua? Yes. To what end? Apostles died, yes. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. To the ridicule of others in this room, perhaps. See, that's what Joshua had. His family was turning against him. So I think we say that all the time, right? We say things like, stand strong in the faith. You know, why do we say that? Is that a command from God for us today to stand strong in the faith? Okay, so we say that all the time. It kind of just rolls off our tongue in Bible class often. So a little bit of a challenge for you here. Maybe not a challenge. Book, chapter, and verse. Give it to me. Look it up. Tell me. Where does it say that? Where is that command given? You can talk amongst yourself if you need to, but figure it out. Where is that given? Why do we say that so often? That's one of the things I'm looking for. So if he used to bring out Luke 12, don't fear the body, don't fear those who can harm you, but kill your body, but the one who can kill your soul. That's something along those lines. That's something definitely along the lines. What else do we have? I want you to walk away with a verse or a section First Corinthians 16:13. I love when people find the verse I was talking about. Good shot, Margaret. 1 Corinthians 16:13. Watch and stand fast in the faith. Be brave. Be strong. Let all you do be done in love. There's a command there. And again, to what end do we do that? Whatever it takes. Let's see if you can find another verse. Book, chapter, verse. Give it to me. Summarize it for me, please, Chris. Yeah, absolutely. So what was it? 1 Peter what? 1 Peter 5:8-9. Stand fast. Stand firm in your faith, what you said? Yeah. Absolutely. There's another one. Ephesians 6:10. We're going to read this section, actually. Ephesians 6:10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And then jumping down to verse 14, it gives us the armor of God. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod up your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench the fiery darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So we see the commandment to be strong. It applies to us as well. Can anybody think of another one? Would you mind summarizing, Zach? Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I did read that one. Matthew 24, he who stands firm till the end will be saved. That actually refers to the reward that we brought up earlier. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Be strong and let your heart take courage, all you who wait on the Lord. There was Psalms 31. 24. Excellent. Thank you, Nate. Philippians 1, 27 and 29, 28. Would you mind summarizing, Diana? Very good. And we get to salvation again. Very good. Standing strong. So we sing the song, Dare to Stand Like Joshua, right? And a lot of these verses we've been reading, they tell us to be strong, and they often tell us how to do it. They tell us what to fear, what not to fear. And I hope you made note of one of those. We talked about Luke 12, 1 Peter 5, Philippians 27, Psalms 31, Ephesians 6, 1 Corinthians 16 and 13. I appreciate it if you would remember those. That's one of the things I really want you to take away from this class is to have the recall of one of those verses. So that when we say, stand strong in the truth, or stand strong in faith, you can recall this verse. And I might even ask you to which one you remembered after class. You know, I'm socially awkward enough to ask you that. And I mean, I did make the point of running around and handing everybody empty paper towel rolls for no apparent reason. So I might ask you. So please make a mental note of those. But we haven't even gotten to the book of Joshua yet, right? So far we've just been in Numbers, and there's a whole book of Joshua. All that's happened so far that we've read is during the life of Moses, and when Moses is leading the people. In Deuteronomy 31, God and Moses make Joshua the new leader of the people before Moses' death. Then in chapter 34 of Deuteronomy, verses 9, Moses lays his hands on Joshua, who is then filled with the spirit of wisdom, and it says there, it says there that the people would take heed of him because of that. And I want to think about the example of Joshua. You know, he knew the truth. He knew what God expected, and he was rewarded for it along with Caleb, in that he didn't have to perish in the wilderness along with everyone else. So this takes us to the book of Joshua. If you're in the Pew Bibles, it's page 210. So if you'll go with me to the book of Joshua. I want to establish a timeline real quick to make sure we're kind of all on the same page. Who are the people of God now at this point, at the start of Joshua? I mean, yes, the Israelites, but more specifically. The babies who came out of Egypt, right. And so everyone who came out of Egypt has now passed in that 40 years in the wilderness. And so did any of these people see the waters part at the Red Sea, besides Joshua and Caleb? Yeah, right. I mean, there might have been a couple of who were real little at that point, and they might have seen it. But, I mean, they were certainly told it by their parents. And the elders at this time now would have been the youngest crossing when the Red Sea parted, right? And so those were also the children who received manna from heaven. Those were the children who grew up in the wilderness. Could you imagine being a teenager and wandering around in the desert? I imagine they were a lot of fun. But yeah, that's the life they've lived so far. So the elders of this time have gone through quite a lot. So starting in the book of Joshua, I want to start reading in verse 1 there. So after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise and go over this Jordan, you and all your people, to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said to Moses. From the wilderness and from this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you in the days of your life, as it was with Moses. So I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give you. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. And have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. What words do we keep hearing over and over there? Strong and courageous. Is Joshua already pretty good at this? Is Joshua already good at strong and courageous? It seems so. Are the people at this point? They proved it once by now? I'm blanking. Did you mind? Right. Yes, I kind of skipped over that part. All right, so they've already proved it once in battle against the Midianites. Right, yes. Right. So Numbers 31, they take on the Midianites. And not even a single soldier died. Yes. Sorry, Deuteronomy means second law. Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't pick that up. Okay, so he was saying that Deuteronomy means second law, and it's really written for the second generation. Okay, that wasn't supposed to be there. Okay. What's that? They were equipped, yeah. So they're starting out well. Right, yeah. Right. Okay, so I want to sum up real quick. So 10 through 18, Joshua tells the people to prepare to cross the Jordan in 3 days. They tell Joshua they will take heed of his words and the commands as they did Moses. So as he was pointing out, they were already off to a good start. And then starting in chapter 2 there of Joshua, during that 3 days that they're preparing, spies go into Jericho, and they kind of get the lay of it before they attack. Remember, this is where Rahab the harlot hides them from the king's men, and then we get an interesting view from Rahab. She recognizes the power of God is with the people, right? She refers to the time of Moses and she knows when Moses parted the Red Sea and how the kings of the Amorites were defeated in Deuteronomy 2 and 3. And she asked them to spare her family in their attack on the city, and she hides the spies, and they agree to that. And then the spies go back in verse 23 here in Joshua 2, and they give the report to Joshua, and they tell him all about Rahab. And Joshua, of course, says, wow, it's really good luck that you found her, right? Absolutely not. Who was that? Who was that? I don't remember that part. Maybe I missed it. He wasn't happy that they made the bargain? I remember that later. I don't remember that specifically here. Well, in verse 23, we can just read it. There in 2 and 23, it says, though the two men returned and descended from the mountain and crossed over, and they came to Joshua the son of Nun, and they told him all that had befallen them. And they said to Joshua, truly the Lord has delivered all the land into our hands, for indeed all the inhabitants of the country are faint-hearted because of us. All right, and so that's when they come down. And so I think this is good news, right, Mary Jane? This is good news here? I didn't misunderstand, I think. Okay, good. So, yeah, it's not like, it's not good luck that you found her. It's God is with us. He has delivered the hand. He's delivered, God is with us in this. Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's what this verse is pointing out, is that God's hand is already in it. And that's what Joshua is saying here. Absolutely, right. Yeah, absolutely. So Nate was saying that Joshua hasn't changed his tune since the time of Moses. That's what he was saying to Moses in front of all the people who were ready to stone him. And here he is saying it again. We can do this because the Lord is with us. And so then chapter 3 starts, and the people are ready to cross the Jordan River. And a very important detail about this crossing is who crossed the river first? Who was the first one to the river? The priest with the Ark of the Covenant. Remember when they ran up the mountain and attacked, they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant, and they didn't have Moses. But now the people are behind the Ark of the Covenant, which is going first, right? And what happened because of that? The priests, when they dipped their feet in the water, this roaring river, which is overflooded at this time, the waters stop up the river. The waters start to mound up there. The water at this end, keeps going. But the water stops flowing. And the priests walk out a little farther, and they kind of plant their feet there. And the ground is dried, and again, the people cross on dry ground. So the river just stopped flowing when the men carrying the ark stepped into it. And then here Joshua set up, in chapter 4, starts with Joshua has the men set up the memorial stones in the river right where the priest's feet were. And then real quick, just want to close it. So we're going to continue from here on Sunday. But I wanted to point out in verse 13, it says about 40,000 prepared for war crossed over before the Lord for battle to the plains of Jericho. So we got 40,000 men crossing the Jordan River. Random Bible trivia. How many people left Egypt? More than that, yeah. 600,000. Plus women and children, yeah. So it was men, 600,000 plus women and children. Absolutely. That's in Exodus 12:37. So 600,000 men left. And now I assume the ones crossing the river now are, again, the men, right? Because they're the ones who would battle. So we went from 600,000 down to 40,000 who are crossing. We're going to pick up there on Sunday. And thank you for your kind attention and comments tonight.